Hi, everyone. We see you coming in. If you're here for the PCF operating grants full application, you are in the right place. So we'll just give everyone a few minutes to make sure they're all signed in. So appreciate everyone's patience this morning. Give one more minute, I think, because we've got about 2/3 of the folks who signed up who are present. So as a note, this is being recorded. So just for awareness for you all. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Good morning, Jennifer. If you all would like to introduce yourselves in the chat, you're certainly welcome to. We'll go over some housekeeping in just a minute. Is that, this guy? Okay. All right, so you should see it says 2027, 2026, 27 operating grants on our shared screen. Perfect. And of course, this is my least favorite part of webinaring, which is that my controls all disappear. So I appreciate everyone's patience. We will go ahead and get started. Go through a quick agenda. Of course, sorry to just orient everyone. We are here to discuss the contents of the full application for the 2026-27 operating grant cycle for Pinellas Community Foundation. We have shared a couple of other webinars previously. That content is still accurate and applies to the full application. So if you do have any questions about something we didn't cover today, I recommend that you review those resources as well. Okay, so for today's agenda, we'll go over some webinar housekeeping. We do have some insights from reviewing the LOIs that we received we'd like to share with you all. We'll go over sort of some general advice. We'll walk through the questions for both arts and culture and direct community services organizations, and then we will have some time for Q&A at the end there. So real quick, before we jump in, I do just want to introduce myself. I'm Rebecca, the Director of Grants Management, sort of managing the process for the application. We also have our team online. If you all don't mind introducing yourselves and sort of how you'll be serving during the webinar, that would be really helpful. Duggan, I'll start with you because you're in my top corner.
Good morning, everybody. Duggan Cooley. I'm the CEO of Pinellas Community Foundation. I'm here to help Rebecca and the rest of the team with whatever they might need.
Perfect. Brittany, do you mind?
Hey guys, my name is Brittany Baldwin. I am the our foundation associate, and I am here to help manage the chat, help make sure you guys get your questions answered, either virtually within the webinar or after the webinar has finished, and we'll have that Q&A session as well. So I'm here for the tech issues. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Brittany. And Jackie, I know you're with us as well.
Good morning. I'm Jackie. I'm the communications manager here at PCF, and I'm just here to support with the chat as well.
Awesome. I appreciate everyone lending their expertise to this process. It has been a group effort, so very appreciative to the team for keeping us going. So in terms of the webinar and sort of how it's going to function, as I said, the recording is recording. We'll post it on the website after it finishes compiling and doing whatever it is recordings do. We do have the chat turned on. Like I said, you're welcome to introduce yourselves or share any general updates with the group. We ask that you use the Q&A function for questions that are related to the content of the webinar. That is going to be the easiest way for our team to keep up with what you're curious about. Brittany or Jackie or Duggan, please feel free to interrupt me at any time if something does come in through the Q&A. I know we may want to address some of those in real time. There are some that we may prefer to address at the end of the session. There are some we may need to do some asking and come back to you and provide that update. So please just do make sure to use that Q&A to ask those questions. We will have the recording of the webinar posted as soon as possible. We will also have the transcript for the Q&A that will be available probably early next week. It does take our team some time to compile those. We will also have, and I'll repeat this at least one more time, we will also have a Word version of the questions available to you. I just did not have the time to get it done before preparing for the webinar. So those will be on the website as well, in addition to the Q&A and the recording of today's webinar. Within the webinar today, if you would like to use the raising hand function because you'd prefer to ask your questions verbally, we'll be able to use those at the end and hold space for those direct questions at this time. One thing I do want to address is that we did have some folks who did not move on to the second round of the full application. We deeply appreciate everyone's time, their expertise, the impact that their work has on our community. It was not an easy decision, and this is not the place to have that discussion. So if you do have questions about your LOI and perhaps why you weren't moved to the next stage, please reach out to our grants inbox, grants@pinellascf.org, and we will have that conversation. And you'll understand why our team may be a little overwhelmed with some of that in just a moment. We are going to go through briefly some of the insights that we discovered during reviewing those LOIs. As I said in the email, we did have about 241 LOIs that were submitted. Only 122 were moved on to the next stage. In terms of looking at the scoring for the LOIs, for all of the LOIs that were submitted, the average score was 90%. So overall, it was a very high scoring group. The median of all of those LOIs was 93%. And out of the 122 that were selected, the average and the median was 95% in terms of the scoring rubric that we used. And so I just want to really reiterate the quality of the application, the quality of the work that is being done to support our community. It is deeply appreciated. This was not an easy process. So in terms of our overall numbers that we sort of managed, we had 34 total applications for our small arts and culture, 14 moved on. And you can see the rest of the numbers there. I don't need to read them for you, but as you can see, it is a relatively small group that made it through for each bucket that is being considered. So again, any questions on this, we can certainly dig into in sort of direct feedback if you're curious. So Duggan, is there anything you want to say before we move on to? No? Okay. So in terms of something that we observed from those LOIs, not just from the folks who didn't move forward, but from the folks who did, we do want to remind you that when you're responding to the questions in the full application, please make sure to focus on the level that the operating funds will be used at. If you're speaking broadly about the whole organization, your responses should be broad. If the award supports a specific program, please provide a more specific answer relative to the program that you're seeking funding for. Plain language is really, really helpful. Sometimes parsing through what a sentence is trying to say it can be a little challenging. So we do have some recommendations for how to manage that from the authoring side of things. And this is just based on what we have found to be successful in the past. Generally, please leave a few days for your review. Please do not try to cram everything into the last week before the due date. That is going to introduce an additional level of stress, which will be evident in your responses. So please do take the time to respond thoughtfully and give yourself that space. Read each question carefully. does your response answer every element of the question? And we're especially cautious when we look at our upload fields. That is something that we'll talk about a little bit later as well. So if you are the person authoring the responses in the full application, read your final version out loud. You may sound very silly, you may feel silly, but trying to actually take the words that you've put on paper and read them into the world, that is going to give you a good understanding of how is the review committee going to be reading your response. Does it make sense grammatically? Are there any lingering sentence fragments? These are the sorts of things that we do want you to be aware of, just because it allows you to put your best foot forward. And then I think one of the most helpful tools that I personally have found when I am writing something for public consumption is just having someone who is unfamiliar with the work that I'm doing specifically to actually read that final version and just provide feedback on it. That is going to be one of the best ways to provide an internal check. So we are going to go ahead and jump into the applications in the grant portal. In just a moment, I do have 2 new fields that I want to bring to your attention specifically. So for each organization type, both our arts and culture folks and our direct community services, we are going to ask you to share the story of a real participant in your programming. We ask this to help tie together the information for the review committee. It can translate what you're describing sort of objectively through the outcomes and measurements fields, through the description of your programming. Using a story really allows you to translate what that means for the people that you are serving. And we do ask this for both our arts and culture and for our direct community services organizations. We have also added a field for definitions, and this is optional. It is not something that you are required to answer. But as I was going through some of the LOIs, I noticed that, which makes sense because it feels like you're speaking to peers, and in some cases you certainly are. But for our review committees, not everyone is going to have the same level of depth of engagement within these different service areas. And so if there's something that's specific to your sector, there's something that's specific to your organization that's an acronym, or if there is, a relationship that you feel could use more explanation, we've provided a field where you can do that so that it doesn't take up those character counts in some of those other required responses. Again, this is optional. This is the first time we're using it. Might be a disaster. I hope that's not the case. I hope it is a useful tool for you all. So please just feel free to put additional factual information in that space. It's not a place to describe programming. It's intended as a space to provide context for the folks who are reviewing the full applications. Oh, okay. So now we're switching to the grant portal. Let me stop my share here. Do we have any questions, team, that have popped up that we need to answer before we jump in there?
There's one about, is there a breakdown of how many per group is going to be awarded? And that I'll just say that's not an exact number for each group, but probably close to the, I think 50 to 60% range is on average what will probably be awarded in each group, but it will vary based on how many come through, and then how many each committee successfully believes it can award based on the budget it has, and then some numbers tend to move. It's not an exact science, but close to 50 to 60% is the estimate.
Thank you for providing that context again. And I know our total amount of awards is between 50 and 60 as well. So that's been pretty consistent throughout. So I'll go ahead and share the application. And again, this will be available as 2 separate Word documents, just as soon as I can get everything translated from the software to a Word doc. Okay. I am now hopeful that you all can see my screen that says Pinellas Community Foundation up at the top. Perfect. And then in terms of zoom in, is it large enough to be seen on a shared screen? Okay, super. Thank you all. So, as I said, there are a couple of questions that are shared between organizations, and there are some questions that are specific to arts and culture, and some questions that are specific to direct community services. And so what I'm going to do is sort of walk through and show you where that logic is applied, and then we'll go through and see what those different questions are. Everyone should see this first section that has a description of the resources that are available to you during this period. We have the registration link here for the webinar. That won't do you any good after the webinar is over, but we will have the recording on our website within 48 hours. And so that is right on our grants page, our operating grants page. If you would like to book time with the grants team, you can certainly do that. I have placed this link here in Calendly. We do ask that you only book 1 session at a time. We may be able to answer all of your questions in a single session. You can book additional sessions after that initial one if it's needed. Please try to answer as many questions in the grant portal before this session as possible. That will allow us time to review and sort of collect our thoughts before we have that interactive discussion with you. We are available for full support between September 8th and October 3rd. However, only technology support is going to be available in that last week, October 4th through the 14th. So please be mindful of that. If for whatever reason, I think there's like 120 openings in our slate. If one of those times does not work for you, please reach out to our grants email, and we will be able to set up time that does work for your schedule. I know some of you are volunteers, some of you, work a day job, and this is what you do in the evenings. I will make myself available. Please just let me know if those times do not work for you. As I said, the Word versions of these questions will be available on the website in a number of hours. One more point I would like to make about booking time with our team, asking questions through email. We are going to do our very best to give you advice and feedback that is based on our experiences and what we have seen to be successful, our own expertise and perspective. Booking time with us does not necessarily mean that the review committee is going to look at your application any differently. They aren't going to know who or how many sessions were granted. So if you feel like you need more help, that is not going to be a ding against you. If you feel like you don't need to talk with us because you've got it and this is your jam, that's cool too. So just please use the resources that you need. Please don't feel apprehensive about using them. Also, please know that we are not mind readers and we can give you the best advice we can, but we cannot guarantee that the review committee will interpret things in the same way that we have. So it's just a statement. So again, these are all pretty standard questions that are going to come through for everybody in that first introductory section. Some of these responses have been copied from your LOI. And so some of them you can change, some of them you cannot. And that will be apparent once you get into the application and see which fields are able to be adjusted. So again, we've answered all of these in our LOIs. In terms of the organization budget size that supports Pinellas County, this is going to be one of those logic questions, depending on how you answer, is going to affect what questions pop up for you. So for our organizations that have a greater than $2.5 million operating budget that serves Pinellas County, this is going to populate a different question for you. We also have our type of organization here, arts and culture and direct community services. Again, that's one of those logic questions that will determine which questions pop up. If, to the best of my knowledge, this is one that you cannot change. And so at this point, we reviewed everyone's LOI. We have placed you in the category that we feel is most appropriate for the services that you provide to the community. And this is not something that we foresee changing for any of our applicants. So you should be settled with what this response is within your application already. But again, this is going to change what questions show up for you. So I'll select arts and culture since that's the group that we're moving forward with first. We did ask this question again, this primary grant purpose question. Please describe the primary usage of the operating funds by completing the sentence, "We will use this grant, ... We asked the question more broadly in the LOI, and our responses were also broad. And so we are asking the question again, and we are asking for you to be more specific. Again, this is what we use internally to make sure that the costs you're applying this to are in fact operating costs. And if not, we will of course speak with you and share our thoughts and perspectives on that. So in terms of the large tier organizations, this is the only question that is going to be different for you. Our smaller organizations are not going to have this question. So we do ask our large organizations to clarify why a grant of this size is impactful for your organization's programming, for your operations, for your engagement here in Pinellas County. We do want to help provide context for our committee members to make sure that they are clear on why these funds why and how these funds are going to serve the residents of Pinellas County. So that is our large question. And then digging into the arts and culture specific questions for you all. The first few questions have been moved through from your LOI. So again, those webinars, those Q&As from those sessions, those are going to be really helpful for some of these that have been moved forward. So the discipline that you serve is the same. It's been pulled forward. It cannot be changed. In terms of your artistic and cultural programming, again, this is copied from your LOI. This one can be edited if you feel that you would like to strengthen or change your response. Again, audience description is one that moves forward from the LOI and can be edited. Community impact is also copied and also editable. Community engagement, copied and editable. And this one is a new one. This is artistic expertise. And we are curious about this so that the review committee has an opportunity to understand the expertise and the vision that your team, your leadership especially, brings to the services and the programming that's provided to the community. And so that can be a wide range of experience. It might be lived experience, it might be formal training, it could be a combination of both of those things, right? A really fun Venn diagram. I would just ask that you think creatively about what this expertise looks like and how is that reflected in your organization. Feedback loops, we talked about that. It's the same question. It has been copied from the LOI. One thing I will say, and this is true for all of our feedback loop responses, is that we also want to hear how you have modified things based on your feedback. Did you change operations? Did you change how and when programming is presented? That would be something I would note for anyone who, well, that's all of you. Any of the feedback loop questions, I would just take a look at that and see if that information has been provided. We're also asking for context about our feedback loops. In reading them, some folks answered in the past tense, some folks answered in a future tense. there was some, sorry, my brain just crashed. It's coming back online. There were some folks who responded in a way that seemed as though perhaps they were planning on implementing these in the future. So we really would just like context for those feedback loops, and a quick sentence of, we started this last October and we're in our first year of this process is great. As long as it's true. Please don't tell us fibs. Okay, so this is where we ask for the audience success story. And we talked about that just a few minutes ago with the slides. We are asking you to help tie the objective information about what your organization does to the impact, the experience, just the quality of the experience that your participants have. And so using this success story field is really going to allow that to happen. Would just like to note that there's 2,500 characters here, not 2,000. You're all welcome. We've got the cost to participate question also came through from the LOI, cannot be changed. Presumably that information is accurate across both. And then this is where that optional definitions field is at the bottom of this first section for our arts and culture team. So I'm going to scroll back up, and you won't be able to see this type of engagement with the software just because this is an admin view. So if it looks different when you log in, as long as everything works the way you think it should, please don't panic. Also, don't panic if it doesn't work the way you think it should. Just call us or email us and we'll take care of it. So again, looking at our direct community services organizations, that's going to change our logic. And that brings us up with our direct community services questions. For anyone who is getting whiplash or car sick, I'm real sorry, we're almost through. Program description for our direct community services folks. This is copied from your letter of intent. It can be changed. Target population, copied from the LOI. It can be changed. Community outreach and engagement, copied from the LOI, can be changed. Feedback loops, copied from the LOI, can be updated. Again, this is another one where you will probably want to just give it a quick read through. If there is an opportunity to describe how changes have happened because of the feedback loops that you have in place, this is where you would want to share that information. For our direct community services folks, your story is going to be here within that first tab of questions. And again, this is tying that impact of your work that you've described factually in other places. This is providing a storytelling opportunity to describe the impact on people who participate in your services. We forgot to ask this question in the LOI, and so we are adding it now to the full application, just the cost to participate in direct services. And so if there's a sliding scale that you use, if the operating grant might be used to subsidize programming, you can mention that here. We just want to make sure that whenever possible, services are accessible to the people who need them. And so this is one of the ways that we determine that. This is that optional upload field. Nope. Optional definitions field. And so this is going to be, again, anything where you have an acronym. There's, a weird quasi-governmental relationship, right? Something that seems like a normal person off the street wouldn't quite be familiar with something. You're welcome to place a factual informational description here to help preserve space in your direct responses. And then for our direct community services folks, your outcomes and measurements questions are in their own section. And so again, the outcomes and measurements questions have been pulled forward from the LOI. You can change these if you need to. If you are curious, concerned, I might review the outcomes webinar again and just see if your responses match with those guidelines. We do ask for context for the outcomes and measurements here. And again, this is a response to some of the phrasing that we saw in those initial LOIs. Some folks are responding in past tense. Some folks are, it sounds very aspirational. This is what we would love to do. So we would just like to receive clarity on whether or not that description of the outcomes and measurements is happening in real time, will happen in the future, has recently been implemented. That's the sort of information we're looking for with this context question. So that is where those questions diverge within the application. Everything from this point forward, both types of organizations are going to be asked these questions. And so this section of the webinar is for everyone. So we do ask some questions about engagement, and this is more on the organization level as opposed to engaging with the community. And so the first question that we ask is about coordination and partnership. How do you work with other organizations to increase the impact of your work? We want to know how you're avoiding duplicating work, or if perhaps you are duplicating work, why? That would be helpful to know as well. In terms of board engagement, we would like to know how active your board is. How often are they attending meetings? Are they participating in fundraising? Do they help you with community outreach? Do they help you with partnership outreach? And so it's important for us to have an understanding of how healthy the foundation of our nonprofits are broadly. There's also truth that it's a spectrum. There are some folks who are still in the process of building strong board engagement, and we just want to know that you have a clear understanding of what your board needs in order to be successful. Maybe those are things they're already doing. Maybe it's things that you hope they'll be doing in the future. So that's the sort of information that we're asking for with board engagement. Duggan, is there anything specific that you'd like to share on either of these two questions, coordination and partnership or board engagement?
I think you got it.
Nailing it, dudes. Thank you. Okay, community representation. Again, this is more from an organization perspective. We're not necessarily asking directly about the community, but we are asking about how your organization represents the community that it serves. So it's important that the board and the staff represent the people who are either receiving services or are participating in that arts and culture programming. And so you can cite demographic data, you can share information about how you've changed over time and gotten closer to being able to say, yes, we are representative of the people we serve. That's the information that we're looking for here, is more about self-awareness rather than, this isn't a checkbox situation. We want to understand the process that your organization has gone through to achieve this. In terms of the number of human beings in Pinellas County that receive services, this is something that we are very curious about. We do ask you to include both unduplicated and duplicated service recipients. So if you have a program that you offer maybe 4 times a year and the same 10 people participate each time, those are 10 unduplicated humans because they participated in the same program, but your unduplicated number would be 40 because you've delivered that program to 40 individuals, sort of. So that is what the difference is between duplicated and unduplicated. Unduplicated is if you have the same person coming multiple times, you only count them one time. Duplicated is how many times did you offer that service generally. So we do ask for annual numbers for this, and so it would make sense. We're in the middle of 25 right now, so if you have numbers from 2024, that would be helpful in terms of factual numbers. If you'd like to provide, your annual numbers for 2024, and as of September 3rd in 2025, you've served this many total for the year of 25, you're welcome to include that information as well. I would just ask you to be cautious with your formatting and how you organize your information in this field. It can be tricky from a review perspective to parse out numbers sometimes. So I would just recommend caution with that in particular here. And then where do you physically provide services? This is not where, it might be where your headquarters is, but where do you serve your clients? And so we ask that you sort of generalize. You can select multiple here. So if you are countywide, that is an option. So now we're going to get into the fun one. And these are our uploads. The reason I say it's fun is because it can be challenging sometimes. If the formatting of the document that is uploaded is not clear cut, it can be challenging from a review perspective to pull information out of the documents. So I would just recommend for all of our folks who are uploading, double check your formatting on the document before you upload it to the portal and just make sure that it is legible. So we ask for a board of directors list. This part here is pretty important. We want to make sure we understand whether or not a board member lives or works in Pinellas County. Now you'll notice that we do not provide templates for you all to fill out. That is intentional. You all have your own formatting. You all have already done a lot of this work for your boards, for other funders. We are not asking for you to create yet another unique document for us to review. And please make sure they're legible. Please make sure you read the question carefully and that your upload does actually answer all of those questions. We ask for a copy of your 990. Sometimes these might be too large. You can compress it using an online compressor. If you're really having a struggle with this, you can send it as an email to grants@pinellascf.org. If you send us files, please tell us who you are sending them for. Some folks use Gmail addresses. Some folks, are operating under a DBA. They might have multiple people filling out the application. So please just be very clear if you do send any forms to us that they are clearly identified about who they're for and which field they should be added to. So this is something we're doing a little bit differently this year. Historically, we have only asked for an audit. And what that means is that the organizations that are required to do audits upload their audits, and everyone else doesn't upload anything. And so we're not able to have a full understanding of the financial status of those other organizations. And so if you have an audit, we'd really love to see that. If you have a financial compilation, that would be great. If you have just, your most recent statement of activities and statement of financial position, those are the things that we would like to see here. So again, if those files are too large, please send them to the grants inbox. We're also asking for your Florida charitable solicitation letter. And so if you're not quite sure what that is, we do have some links here that can be used. If you'd like to see a sample, we have one here. It's from the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. So if you do have any questions on this question specifically, please let us know. We ask for some specific information about your organizational budget. And this is for the whole organization, the whole kit and caboodle. That is what we are looking for. It can be a PDF, it can be an Excel. But again, if it is that PDF, please make sure that it is formatted in a way that is legible. If there's anything that you feel like you need to explain relative to that budget, please include that information here. You'll see this is optional. You may not need to explain anything, but there are some things where perhaps more context is helpful for someone who isn't intimately familiar with the inner workings of your organization. How many hours per year do your volunteers serve is what we're asking for here. And then specifically about your volunteers, we are asking for how many active unduplicated volunteers you have serving Pinellas County. So if you have a dedicated group of 3 volunteers, we want their total hours here, but we only want to see that you have 3 of those volunteers. We are also asking how you utilize them. Are they serving in sort of administrative capacities? Are they part of your service delivery? Are they helping with operations on the back end? Be clear about how you are utilizing those volunteers to help support your mission. If you've received any in-kind goods or services, please make sure that they are included in the organization budget, but also please just describe exactly what those services or products look like. Maybe you get hygiene items donated, maybe you have someone who donates their marketing services. That would be something to describe here. And then looking at your 990, your budget, those financial statements, if there's anything that demonstrates that there's been a significant surplus or a deficit, and for our purposes, that means 10% or more when compared to total expenses, we would just ask that you explain why that occurred, and sort of what the context is for that type of discrepancy. If there's a document related to this explanation, you have the option to upload it here. And then if your request for operating funds is related to a specific program, we would ask that you upload the program budget here. So again, at the top of this section, we're asking for the organization-wide budget. For this question specifically, we're asking for that program budget. And so if you're applying for operating funds for your entire organization, this question is not relevant for you. You do not need to worry about it. We are curious about other funders that you have relationships with or receive funding from. And so we have listed the ones that make sense to us. There may be others that you have developed relationships with that aren't on this list. We would ask that you just click other and provide that information here. If there's nobody else that you're working with, none is a perfectly acceptable answer. So Duggan, anything on the finance uploads or board engagement?
I think just the reminder, you went over it, but the change this year being that if you have an audit, upload the audit, please. If you don't, then there's other options for what to upload. And that doesn't mean an audit's required by PCF. We are not requiring you to have an audit to be eligible, but we are wanting more financial information. If you don't have an audit, just the option to provide additional financial information for us. And if people have questions about that, we're happy to help out.
Awesome. Thank you. That is a good reminder. An audit is not required to be eligible. Thank you. So in terms of other questions that you're going to come to in the application, is just acknowledging that there are reporting requirements. We ask for a report at the end of the first funded, 30 days after the close of the first year. So the first report would be due in January 27. The second report would be due in January of 28, with that funding being received in 26 and 27. We also ask that you acknowledge PCF if the grant is awarded. This is usually a logo on your website as well as recognition during appropriate sponsorship events. And our fearless leader in marketing, Jackie, will be able to help you with that if you do need anything. We've given a voluntary optional additional upload. If you're an arts and culture organization, you might want to use this to upload work samples if they're relevant to your request. If they're not, there's no pressure to upload anything. It's optional. We just want to give you the tool if you need it. For our direct community services folks, if you do have anything else that you'd like to share, this is what your anything to share field looks like. For our arts and culture folks, you have one of these as well. I will spare you my scrolling all the way back up to the top to show it to you. Trust me, it's there. And then we do have a brief survey at the end. This is optional. We have pulled forward the response that you shared about time dedicated to the LOI. That's just for your reference. We also have how many hours were spent completing the full application, and that's separate from the time spent, including spent on the LOI. We're curious if you attended this webinar, if you scheduled time with us, if you have an endowment or reserves. Again, that helps us get a better understanding of how financially well the financial well-being of organizations in our community, and then what your thoughts on this application are. So I am happy to receive this information here through the survey. This is not going to be shared with the review committee. If you do not want to provide this information tied to your application, we do have a link here that will take you to a separate anonymous survey. It's through Microsoft. I couldn't figure out how to pull your information out of it if I wanted to, right? Like I'm just not that savvy. So super anonymous. Please feel free to give us the good, the bad, and the ugly. That is how we get better over time. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing here. Do we have any questions, team, that we can address or should address?
I think we tried to answer most of them in the by typing them out in the fields.
Cool. Okay. I will share. Oh, we're gonna see. Hang on.
There is a question in the chat, you guys.
Okay.
Oh, she just put it in to the questions for the Florida charitable letter. Do you want both the letter and the check of charity screenshot?
Either one will suffice. So we'll take if you don't have access to the letter, as long as the check of charity screenshot shows that the registration is still active, that will suffice. The letter is good too, either one.
Perfect. Thank you, Deccan. And thank you, Brittany, for bringing that forward, and to the person who put it in the Q&A. You guys, teamwork makes the dream work. Okay. Oh, just some reminders. I wanted to make sure to have these as a standalone slide just when you're going back and reviewing. Please make sure to review each upload request carefully. Does the upload answer the question? Double check that all of your required uploads have been added. And then please review the format of what you've uploaded. If a reviewer downloads the file, will it be easy for them to extract that information?
And Rebecca, just to your point there is the opportunity when you check the upload to page through it. And so make sure all of the pages to whatever you uploaded are there. We have had situations before we try and catch them, but can't always get them, where you think you've uploaded 2 pages of a budget and it's only one, or it's just the front sheet to the 990. So please just make sure that you do double check that after you've uploaded something, you can actually page through it in the system. And if you have trouble getting it up there, or for some reason it's not letting you put all the pages in it, email the grants email and we'll get it connected for you.
That's a great reminder, Doug. And I recall there have been some applications that we've looked through, and I wish I were joking when I said we have printed out them all and taped them together to try and get an understanding of what we're looking at. So that is a good reminder. Okay. So we are wrapping up. We'll do Q&A here in just a second, but just want to make sure that you all are aware of our next dates. From right now until noon on October 14th, our team is available for technology support. We've talked about upload fields. We've talked about, checking for your letter. There's any number of technology related challenges that you might have. We are here for them until the deadline at noon on October 14th. In terms of content support, we were not able to provide this during the LOI because the PCF team is the reviewing group for the LOIs. With our full applications, our review committees are going to be the folks who are assessing your responses. And so the PCF team can be available to provide support as you're developing your content. Again, please, if you are going to book that time, the link is at the top of the application. You should be able to put time directly on my calendar, and you can always email us through the grants inbox. We'll be able to provide support there as well. Our application window closes on October 14th at noon. It just does. We are not going to be able to accept any late applications. Once that closes, our team will do just some administrative tidying to make sure that those applications are legible for the review committees. The review committee will be deliberating, and our board will have to approve those recommendations. That will go through October through December. And then in January of 26, the awards will be announced and distributed. So if we have any other questions, I will go ahead and stop sharing. Oh, there you all are.
I don't know that there are questions. I just wanted to say, Rebecca already said that we received so many letters of intent, and quite the increase from 2 years ago. About half of those have moved on to be able to submit a full application. And we're looking probably at funding 50 to 60% of those, as I mentioned earlier. I think many people who know us as a foundation generally find us to be pretty reasonable. If you don't, we're happy to hear that you don't. But I wanted to say we know that there are lots of competing interests right now and competing needs. If for some reason you decide you don't want to complete the full application, or you have something bigger, a bigger application that you need to fill out and you've got competing deadlines, we understand. We'd love to see full applications from everyone who is invited to apply. But if you decide not to complete an application, you can let us know. The foundation does not hold that against you. You're invited to apply for other things at other times. But we do understand that these are challenging times for many of our organizations. And if for some reason you just say this is not the time for us, that's okay. We are okay with that. We understand. And so if you need to tell us that, that's okay too. If you look through the application and find out that it really is too much right now, that's okay. Let us know. But we'd be happy to see you apply in another process you're eligible for here at PCF.
Thank you for that clarification, Doug. And I know that's something, right? How do we prioritize our time? How do we prioritize the effort of our team? And I just really am grateful to be part of a team where we are able to and encouraged to extend grace and to prioritize the relationships that we have with you all as our nonprofits rather than otherwise. So I appreciate that, Doug, and thank you. All right, I don't think I see any questions in the chat or in the Q&A. We are available through the grants inbox. Booking time again starts September 8th. And if you all do need anything, please don't hesitate to let us know. Have a good afternoon, everyone.